Having an engineering background, I really enjoy watches that are more tool specific, and this is no exception. And it's a very practical watch. With its pulsometer, it's ideal for doctors, physicians, athletes, sportsmen, or anyone just wanting to check their heart rate. And looking closely at the watch, you're going to notice a couple of familiar looking elements from that case shape and design. It's not hiding the fact that it's drawing a lot of its inspiration from Rolex Submariner. However, that's where the similarities stop, because the dimensions of this watch, coming in at 39.5mm, make it a real pleasure on the wrist. Now you saw the pop-up, Mancheront has sponsored this video, so I'll leave all the appropriate links in the description section. And getting stuck straight into the specifications of these watches, the numbers are quite favourable. With a case diameter of 39.5 and a lug-to-lug of 47.9, it is a very good wearable experience on the wrist. The height coming in at 14.1 might look a little bit steep initially, but in the real world experience it seems to sit really nicely. Looking at the crown of the watch, it's a very functional 6.9mm screw down crown. The watch offers 100 meters of water resistance, and the total weight on this bracelet sized to my 18cm wrist comes in at exactly 156 grams. Now looking at the overhead, as you can see, 39.5mm case, it's sitting beautiful on my wrist. In fact, the bezel I measure at 41mm, so the watch's presence on the wrist is substantial, which is quite nice. If we look at that height, 14.1mm, more than acceptable in a modern day watch, and the comfort on this bracelet, which tapers from 20mm down to 16 at the clasp, has been really comfortable. So overall, a very nice package, and as you can see, the black one is sitting on my wrist. It's got a unique look. And if I swap it out and put the white version on my wrist, the comfort factor is exactly the same, albeit a completely different look. Looking at a side-by-side comparison, you can see how they sit on the wrist and their unique visual presence. Now before I look at any more details of this watch, some people might not know what a pulsometer is. And I mentioned it earlier, it allows you to measure your heart rate. So for doctors, for physicians, athletes, how it works is very simple. As you can see, you've got a bezel with all the increments across there. It says base 30 pulsations, which means you're going to count 30 heartbeats, and then this is going to tell you what your heart rate is at that particular time. And the way it works is simple. Your inverted triangle, you put that to where the second hand starts. So in this case, I would put it around here. As soon as that second hand starts, right there, I start measuring a person's pulse. I count 30 heartbeats. At the end of 30 heartbeats, where that second hand lands is going to tell me the actual heart rate of that individual. So if it's an athlete and he's running and I measure 30 quick heartbeats, you look over there and the corresponding number, 115 beats per minute. So it's pretty straightforward, very accurate, and can be used by anybody. So practicality wise, I think especially the fact that we're into lifestyles which includes sports, activities, and we want to keep a track on our fitness and our health. So I think what Dilon's done here by including a pulsometer on that bezel, that's pretty impressive. Now moving away from that, if we turn the watch over, you can notice that it's a solid caseback. The design on this I actually quite like. It's got 6 leaf petals, really nice symmetrical design, very comfortable as the watch sits on your wrist. There's no niggles, no roughness. And what sits behind that caseback is the Miyota 9132 automatic. Even looking inside, you can see there's no shortcuts taken. Having a steel movement holder instead of plastic probably also accounts for the fact that the watch is just that little bit heavier and built better. That caseback looks custom designed with those 6 pedals, so a nice little touch, giving a unique flavour. Even looking at the packaging that the watch came in, the fact that the watch box itself can hold 2 watches, but taking the center section out and turning it over, you got a single slot that holds 1 watch. So that's forward thinking. Some people might use this as a watch storage box or some 2-watch collection. So things like this are pretty schmick. And with both these watches on the time grapher, they've been producing really nice healthy results. If we look closely at that dial, you notice that there's a sub dial at the 6 o'clock. It's a 24-hour scale. You got a date at the 3 and a power reserve indicator at the 12. Everything spaced in a way to be legible, usable, and functional. And initially when the watches first came in, it took a little bit of getting used to looking at the dial layout, because there's a bit of stuff going on there. But after several hours on the wrist, you actually get an appreciation for how it's laid out. Having an engineering mindset, function over form, everything works really well. And I've got to be honest, I'm pretty impressed with the attention to detail on this watch. The finishing is on a very high level. It's got a combination of satin brushing, high polished sides, but that knurling on that bezel, that wreath design is lovely. Very grippy and quite a strong polarizing look. Now looking closer at that bracelet, you can see it's an oyster style bracelet, male end links. They extend that lug to lug from 47.9 to 52.5. But the things drop straight down. It's been extremely comfortable. It seems to hug the wrist, so even guys with smaller wrist should not have a problem with something like this. Now the taper of this bracelet is from 20mm all the way down to 15.7 at that clasp. It features screw pins. As you can see, you've got a butterfly clasp. It locks in, but they've also featured a security clasp, or what we call a flip lock. So ideally there's no real way of opening this clasp unless you open that flip lock, press both pins, and then you can take the watch off. And having a butterfly system, it's extremely comfortable on the wrist, albeit it's at the sacrifice of micro adjustability. The crown on these watches is a 6.9mm screw down crown. The knurling is excellent. The functionality has been very good, healthy pop. 2 clicks, as you can see, we hack the movement. We can adjust our time, and if you notice the 24-hour scale at the bottom, it's showing us that at the moment we're at 2 in the afternoon. So I could easily and comfortably adjust that date if I wanted to, which I will. As you can see, 4th, 5th, 6th, not a problem. Now, if I was in this zone, which is 10 o'clock at night, I would not touch that date because I'm in the danger zone. As you can see, the date changes. So as a functional tool, having the 24-hour scale is quite handy to avoid any gear stripping inside that date complication. Next, you'll notice that the watches have a power reserve at the 12 o'clock. Just by simply winding the watch, you can see that scale increase. There's around 40 hours of power reserve, and being an automatic, as you use the watch throughout your daily routine, it's going to automatically wind itself. However, if you take it off the wrist for a couple of days and you notice that the scale is really low, give it a couple of squirts, get the power reserve up, away you go. Lastly, the crystal on this watch is a flat sapphire. It features multiple coatings of AR on the underside. I've not had any issues with either watch, a very good experience, and legibility's been fine. Now before I get onto any gripes of these watches, you notice that the bezels on these, the inserts, they're both stainless steel. So it's not a ceramic bezel, it's IP coated stainless steel. And none of these bezels are loomed. And speaking of the loom, both watches offer Swiss Superluminova. On the handset, the indices, very clean. They seem to be doing a very good job. To my eyes, they've pretty much got the same intensity. Now what are the potential gripes of these watches? And for me, initially, at 156 grams size to my 18cm wrist, it was an initial, gee, these are quite substantial. It's a little bit top heavy. So it took a bit of getting used to. For a 39.5mm watch, I would have expected a few grams less, but in saying that, 6 or 7 hours on the wrist, it didn't bother me, and the wrist adapted. Second gripe for me is that clasp. I would have loved to see an on-the-fly adjustment on this. Having the butterfly is nice, and that security clasp, it's comfortable, but an on-the-fly would have been really nice at this price point. I think we've come to expect micro adjustability in all the micro brands these days, so we're a little bit spoiled for choice. And probably the last gripe of these watches, for me, the stainless steel bezel, in my eyes, the legibility of the actual writing has been a little bit harder to read than the black. Obviously the contrast of white and black has been real easy on the eyes in any lighting scenario. This one here, it's just not as easy to read as the black one. And that's pretty much it, guys, because I think as a finalized product, the finishing's very good. The fact that they've got functioning pulsometers, the overall functionality, the watches pick up a little bit of bling with those polished sides and accents, but at the same time staying toolish with all the brushed top surfaces. So it's a good balance between functional, luxury, aesthetic, as well as tool specific. So get on their website, guys, check them out. I'll leave all the links in the description. Something a little bit different coming out of Australia for the enthusiast, the sportsman, the athlete, or just a general everyday watch geek. Thanks again for watching. Be well and safe. And until the next one, enjoy the watch that's on your wrist and enjoy this hobby.